audience. I'm Chitra Natarajan. Socioeconomic aspect as well as legal frameworks which are available for their distress management in Gulf countries. So I'm working with Center for West Asian Studies and School of International Studies, JNU. If you look into the Gulf as such, in those areas we can imagine only about a desert, where the major activities was shepherding or pearl trading, so and so. But once when oil was discovered in 1970s, the entire scenario has changed, and these people, they started using oil as a main source of economy. So they shifted into an oil economy, or you can call it as petrodollar economy. And if you look after the discovery of oil, you can see a major demand for labors was created. Why it was created? Because they started to develop infrastructures using the economy that was mainly through the petrol. And since they have started infrastructure development, there was a huge demand for labor, because the local residents were only 10% and they were not trained to work such harsh labors. And the other factor why the labors were demanded in Gulf was the higher income when compared to the income from India. And there was a need for unskilled as well as semi-skilled workers, and the major reason is the employment opportunity that they have in Gulf. If you look into the general characteristics of the Gulf migrants who are immigrating from India, they are majorly contract laborers, and who are temporary laborers who go for 2 to 3 years of contract, and which can be renewed after 3 years. And if you look into this scenario, they are temporary, they are cyclical, but they stay there for more than 30 years or 40 years. Situated in construction workers, because they started building up residential areas, malls and hotels, such construction works. And other major classes were domestic workers, nurses, technicians, engineers and accountants, and most of them, and largely only males, migrated from India. Very recent phenomena that the females also migrating. And females were in domestic workers, teachers, nurses, and most of these are from South India. So if you look into the number of migrants who have migrated since 1978, it was around 2 lakh, but it went on to 3 lakh in 1999, and now the scenario from 2003 to 2011, it has crossed more than 6 millions. So it's a huge number. So in spite of all such things, the Indian government, the Gulf government and the international organizations, they tried to implement some laws to protect the laborers. Why they have to protect the laborers? Because these are the countries which come under easier category, that is immigration check required. In these countries, the labor laws are not enforced. Even if it is there, the migrants who go there cannot access to or exercise whatever the rights they have. So the country of origin, they have to enforce some laws through which they can demand the protection of the laborers from the host country. So I will look into the legal framework from Indian government, from the Gulf and from the ILOs. So from the Indian side, we had 1922 Indian Immigration Act. That was the first law relating to the immigration. And post-independence, we had 1983 the Immigration Act. And this act has changed the parameters after the independence, and it shifted from the control of the immigration to protection of the immigration. And we have Controller General of Immigrants, which has now changed into Protector General of Immigrants, which has made the recruiting agents mandatory to register with the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs. So many ministries are involved for the immigrants. Initially the immigration was under the Ministry of External Affairs, which has shifted to Ministry of Labour. And in 2004 a separate ministry was formed, that is Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs. And we have Protector General of Immigrants Office, which is situated in 9 states, 9 offices. And these Protector of General Immigrants, they only certify whether a migrant can migrate to these ECR countries or not. And the minimum qualification is he has to be 10th passed, below 10th passed, and for female migrants they should be above 30 years of old. And if you look into the Gulf laws, what are the laws that the Gulf has made for the protection of laborers, and what are the bilateral agreements they had signed with the sending countries? If you look into the bilateral agreements that India has signed, we have in 1980s India has signed with Qatar and Jordan, and in 2006 a memorandum of understanding regarding the joint labor committee with UAE, and in 2007 with Kuwait, and 2007 again an additional protocol with Qatar, 2008 with Oman, and 2009 with Bahrain and Malaysia. But we don't have any MOU signed with Saudi Arabia, which which attracts more than 2.5 lakhs of Indian migrants. And the Gulf countries, they have labor laws which are targeted for their local residents, but nothing for the migrant workers. But UAE, which is a little human friendly, I can say, or little modernized because of the emerging globalization and the economy, it has passed a Federal Law 51, which is for the legal framework to handle the human trafficking cases. And in 2005, Saudi Arabia government, it has passed a law for the protection of domestic workers. And in Bahrain and Oman, we have joint labor management consultative committees, but the migrants are underrepresented, or they cannot discuss about the wages or working conditions or hours of work. And if you look into the international laws and conventions, we have several conventions. Out of that, I would like to highlight the 1990 International Convention to the Protection of the Rights of all the migrant workers and the members of their families. It was consumed in 1990, but till 2003 it was not ratified. Only 20 members of the UN countries has to be has to ratify this convention, but 13 years nobody was willing to ratify. But in 2003 it was ratified, where India and Gulf countries are just signatory. We have not ratified it. So obviously the Indian migrants or Indian people who are there in Gulf, they cannot seek redressal from those ILO conventions or UN conventions. In spite of, in respect of all these laws from Indian side, from Gulf side and from the ILO side, there are wide human rights violations which is happening in these areas. So majority of the violations are loss of identity, mystery of whereabouts, exploitation by the recruiting agents and employers, unsafe working and living conditions, wage discrimination, religious suppression, victimization of female migrants, language bias, human trafficking, suicides, and prisoners in jails and detention center. So once these migrants land in the Gulf countries, their passports are being confiscated from the airport only by the employers or by the agents of the employers. And once the passports are confiscated, they have to be given the temporary working permit that is called as Iqama or Pataka within 30 days. Maximum it is 60 days. But in most of the cases, this is not given by the employer, where the migrant is left without any documents, legal documents that he can claim that he is a migrant or legal migrant. So whenever he is, he cannot. So once his passport is confiscated and when he is not given the local work permit document, he is considered as an illegal worker. So he cannot move. So his movement is restricted. And whenever he is caught by the police, he will be jailed, because he is considered anyways as an illegal resident. And Ministry of Whereabouts, if this is a concern, the workers who are working in construction sites, I feel that they are more protected than the workers who are in domestic maids and the shepherds. Because domestic maids, they don't know where they are going. From the airport, the agents, they come with their vehicle, they pick them up, they take them into their own, they call it as villas. Most of the villas are far away. These maids, they don't know where the employer is. They don't know the address. Even if they face some problem, they don't know how to come out. They are being kept inside the houses, and same as shepherds. Shepherds, they were left in the deserts, and they were not supplied with food and water, and very harsh climates during winter as well as in summers, and most of the time they are fed with the cattle feeds. And exploitation by the recruiting agents. This recruiting agents, this is I cannot explain it properly, because even I'm working on this for more than 5 years, but I'm not able to understand how these recruiting agents are working. The government says that there are 1,900 registered recruiting agents. If you look into the numbers, 6 million people are emigrating from India per year. We can imagine like how only 1,900 recruiting agents can arrange for 6 lakh people to emigrate from India. 6 million. 6 billion.
60 lakhs.
60 lakhs, yeah. So this is not only the registered recruiting agents, they have their sub-agents, they have more than 20 tiers of agents. One agent will be sitting in Mumbai. He has links throughout the country. From the city to the district, to the village, to the block, and to the panchayat. All these levels he has his own tiers of agents. And the commission for them is separate. It's not the original commission that they are going to take it. If it is, the ministry says that it's only 20,000 or 45 days of work the recruiting agent has to collect from the migrant. But most of the cases, it is more than 50% of the charges they collect. So the recruiting agents, most of them are illegal. They collect higher commission, they cheat, and most of them indulge in trafficking. And in case of women, most of them they indulge in forced abuse of women. And the employers there in Gulf, they violate the agreements. Before taking the labor, they have to sign a contract labor agreement. But whatever is signed, they are not giving the same job, and whatever the salary, they are not giving the same salary, and most of them, they delay it, or they don't pay it, or they pay less than what they are entitled for. So this is called as contract switching. Most of the cases, this contract switching is happening. And if you look into the working conditions, working and the living condition, it's horrible. We can imagine, even in Delhi, during summers, working in midday is not permissible, but in Gulf countries, people work throughout the day. Even though the legal document says that they should not work from 12 to 3, but people do work for extra payment. Since this worksite is made for construction sectors, they work in higher places, because those Gulf countries, they build constructions always above 200 to 500 feet only. And they use heavy machineries without protective gear, and if they wear the safety norms, they cannot work. If they put the gloves and the shoes and everything, they are not able to work fast. So they remove the protective gears, they work without safety norms, and they meet with most of the accidents and incidental deaths also. And they don't have, obviously they don't have the right of association or join unions or form unions, so there is no word of collective bargaining. And interestingly, strikes are permitted in Gulf countries. You can strike. If you're a private firm, you can strike. But they are allowing the employer to suspend or deport who is striking without any reasons. If he is not turning for 7 days, he can be deported back. He can be given absconding report, and which is illegal. So the government is so tricky that they are giving the permission to strike, but they are empowering the employer also to suspend who are striking. And if you look at the living condition, it's almost generally outside the city area or the town area, and mostly in the deserts. And they are held in labor camps. Most of them are held in labor camps, which is like I went to Dubai. It is like outer outskirts of the city. I have to travel around 40 or 50 kilometers. It is called Sonapur. The entire Sonapur is full of labor camps. You can see. It's like it's a small village. You can see different companies, they have their own labor camps, but the standards are very poor. I got permission to visit one of the labor camp, but I was not shown or given the entire details about the labor camps. I was able to visit only the outside of the camp, but I was told by the residents that 8 people they live in one room, which is very small, and they don't have good water, they don't have good food, and most of the time soon after they come from work, they have to sit inside the room only. They don't have any other entertainments, they have to sit inside the room. And this I am talking about the well-constructed labor camps, but most of the labor camps are situated outside in the deserts, where the actual construction is happening. So those are temporary or shiftable camps, where you see a container which we see for transporting materials. We might have seen the big containers. So that containers is converted into a room with some insulation inside, and we cannot believe, if you go and see inside, 8 people lives inside. The beds are stacked like this, and soon you get down from your bed, you don't have space to walk. Most of the labor camps are situated in deserts, and they are temporary. And while interacting with them, like, I got some conclusion that most of them, since they were kept in like in a closed area or in a confined area, they were having this claustrophobia, that is psychological depression and the secluded feeling, and they don't have any connection with the localites also. And if you come to the wage discrimination, there is no established minimum wages, and the employment contract were unilaterally changed the migrants' disadvantage, and premature termination of the employment contract. This is a major problem the Indians are facing there. If there is any problem, any employer that raise voices against the employer, his contract is terminated, and he will not be given his passport. He will be left out in the like deserts only, and unpaid wages, reduced wages, and people who do extra hours of work, they were not paid. They were cheated on that. And discriminated wages against non-Arabs and non-Muslims. If you are a non-Arab, you will be paid less. If you are a non-Muslim, you will be paid less. Compared to the same job, what our sir has told, Muslims and Arabs are paid well. And in most cases, they were subcontracted to the third-party firms. Like Arab would be heading the firm, but he would have given it to an US employee or a European employee, and from him, an Indian employee would take up the firm. He would contract it to another person, so you don't know who is your main owner. So in this case, if you don't know the main owner, you cannot demand anything, and the wages are unnegotiable. And if you come into the religion, it's an Islamic state. Gulf states are Islamic, they are non-secular, they are ruled by Sharia, and you cannot practice any other religion in public. So no reported Hindu festivals are celebrated, and inability to possess Hindu idols or pictures. Especially in Saudi Arabia, you cannot carry, they were taken away from you even in the airport only. And effect of Islamic festivals on duty timings and food habits. During this Ramzan time, you can see for whatever the time, morning time, they fast. So that time you should not work. If you are working, you will be jailed. If they see that a person is working during that period where they have to observe the fast, you will be jailed. And forced conversion, this is happening for the job favor, for marriage, and domestic maids and drivers. They were forced to convert. And if you look into the female migrants, they are the most victimized migrants. They were initially abused by the recruiting agent, and then their passports are being confiscated. And the labor laws, they do not apply for the domestic workers. This is very interesting, but they come under the Ministry of Interior. So they don't have any right to talk about their rights. And they cannot communicate with their families. And most of them were treated very brutally. They were beaten, they get burns, they were given less food. They were kept in dark room most of the time and long hours of work, no breaks. Since they are in domestic sector, they cannot take a break. And forced confinement, sexually abused by their employers. They were trafficked and forced into prostitution also. And in such cases, they were arrested, detention and deported to India. And then human trafficking. This is a major crime that is happening in the Gulf region. The report from UAE government says the traffickers and the victim originate from the same country. And because it is from the country of origin, it is very difficult to overcome such crimes. So they enforced for the bilateral cooperation to tackle the crime at the source. If you look into the forms of trafficking, it is through recruiting, transporting, transferring and harboring, and means of trafficking by use of threat or force, other forms of coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, etc. And examples of exploitation like prostitution, servitude, forced labor, enslavement and organ trade also. This is the human trafficking cases in UAE from 2007. It's increasing. This is just only in UAE. You can imagine about the other Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, etc. And suicides, this is increasing these days. If you look at the major causes, it's mainly because of the financial burden due to delayed or lesser or non-payment of salary, loneliness or psychological depression, family problems, workload, job loss, and forced deportation, report of absconding, harassment mainly, mental torture, and they don't want to compromise with the honor, respect and trust of families and communities and creditors, so they end up their life. And prisoners in jail, most of them are jailed for petty crimes. Just if you steal, if you eat something from the shop where you are working, you eat a chocolate, if it is found out in the camera, you are prisoned. Bouncing back of check and false complaints by the employees also. And the conditions in the jail is very pathetic. Prisoners, they are overcrowded, they don't have access to appropriate health care. Most of them are mentally ill. And the Indian government, they give only initial legal assistance, because they say that crime done anywhere in the world is a crime. So we cannot support for that. And the punishments are in form of floggings, where you get lashed by beatings, beheading, stoning and life imprisonment. There are amnesties, periodic amnesties during the religious festivals. And the problem in this area is, and in murder cases, only the victim's family may commute death sentence. and denial of fair public trial. So these are the complaints relating to the female workers received by Indian missions, the embassies and the consulate offices in Gulf countries in 2007. We can see the numbers. If you look into the nature of complaints, it's majorly cheating or forgery, job-related, not providing job or salary-related or ill treatment. And they have filed cases against illegal or unregistered recruiting agents. This is the number of complaints received against the registered recruiting agents. The number of complaints are increasing, and this is the complaints against unregistered agents. If you see, it is increasing from 2004 to 2006. It was 38, and 2005 53, and in 2006 it is 78. The Indian government, it has taken some steps to protect its labor or NRI in the easier countries, like 24/7 helpline, toll-free helpline is there, and there is Indian Community Welfare Fund, where the migrants can take assistance for initial legal assistance, for food, for daily allowances, and compulsory attestation should be done by the Indian mission abroad before signing the contracts. And now they had come up with web-based attestation procedures, and the age restriction for female workers to 30 years, above 30 years, and Pravasi Bharatiya Bima Yojana 2006, and various campaigns are also done, and they have publicly given the blacklisted employers who are there in Gulf. Also, the new scheme of pension and life insurance scheme has come up. So, all these human rights violations I have discussed, from my perspective, I feel that some could be addressed with these resolutions and demands. So, for loss of identity, we can, what the Indian government can do is we can enforce the Indian embassy to ask the migrants to compulsorily register with them soon on their arrival, and they have to share the information with the host country, because the immigration office in Gulf countries, they take the details who are entering the country. So the Indian embassy, they can share the information from the host country. And regarding recruiting agents, they should be trained, and stricter deterrent rules should be enforced for unlicensed recruiting agents or sub-agents. And I feel government should start their own recruiting agencies. Like we have overseas manpower corporations, but it's not working in full-fledged manner. These overseas manpower corporations, they are recruiting only skilled workers, mostly skilled and semi-skilled workers. They are not recruiting unskilled workers. But I feel that the government should start its own recruiting agencies, and the blacklisted employees has to be monitored. And for unsafe and working and living conditions, periodic monitoring and inspection of work sites and the living space should be done by the local governments. And it must, the workers must undergo pre-departure training about the use of safety kits. And for wage discrimination, I prefer that we should prescribe for minimum wages. For example, the Filipino government, Philippines, they have ratified the UN protocol. So they are demanding that the Gulf countries, that you give me this much money to my migrant, then only I will send my migrants. They are in a demanding position because they are ratified the UN convention. So there should be a wage protection scheme also. And religious suppression and secrecy, I don't feel any solutions we could come up with. And victimization of female migrants, we can continuously monitor and report to the embassy every 6 months by the employer. We can ensure that the employer should report to the embassy every 6 months about the details, and they should bring the worker and show in person to the embassy. And lack of grievance redressal mechanism. When I interviewed 200 people from Tamil Nadu, and most of the workers, they said that they don't know where is the Embassy of India. They don't even know whether such exists in Gulf countries. So people should know about the migrants should be aware of the facilities that the embassies are doing. And for human trafficking, it should be controlled in the country of origin. It should be controlled here only. And we should cooperate with the Interpol. We should exchange information about the persons who are involved, and tighter controls should be at the entry points, centralized data collection method, and promote anti-human trafficking culture. And for suicides and prisoners in jail, I wish that psychological counseling at labor camps should be done. Awareness campaign on savings, health and clean habits, and stress management should be given. So I conclude that with these expectations that India should be pressurized to ratify the UN Convention on Protection of Migrants, and the migrants should be given pre-departure training, and they should know the employment opportunities that is available. And the major thing is the rehabilitation of the returned migrants. Most of the returned migrants, they struggle to rehabilitate themselves. Some they go for self-employment, but most of them, they have this stigma that they don't want to take any job lesser than what they have done there. So we have to look into the returned migrants also, and we should pressurize for MOUs on labor agreements with all the GCC countries, especially on Saudi Arabia and other Asia countries also. And finally, I want to conclude that I have spoken about different issues and problems, but I feel that at least from our side, we should try to solve the problem within our country of origin. I feel that major reason for the problem the Indians facing in Gulf is through the recruiting agents, and we should try to protect them from such unscrupulous and unregistered agents. And I think I should conclude here with taking all the responsibilities in our own hand from Indian side, because that is, Gulf is a non-democratic kingdom. We cannot expect them to look forward for non-nationals for their rights, because the human rights are violated for their own citizens. So I conclude this. It's all in our hands. Thank you.